www.libertarian-party.ru. Лаборатория Хаперского. Лучшие идеологические антивирусы. Проект Либертарианской партии России.
I have a question about public housing.
Sure.
I agree with you when you say that the number of dwellings destroyed is greater than the number of dwellings put up. But you are comparing the number of dwellings that are destroyed are three-story apartment buildings left over from the 19th century. And the dwellings that are put up are about 20 stories high and have about 8 families per floor.
Oh, I mean the number of dwelling units, not the number of buildings. When I spoke, I was not careful, and I should have been. I meant the number of dwelling units, where a dwelling unit is something that houses a family. So in the case of the buildings you're talking about, I wouldn't count that as one 8-story building versus one 3-story building. But the number of dwelling units built is less than the number destroyed. How does that improve the housing?
Maybe you dislike the public housing because of the institutional look to it, and that it looks more like a hotel and looks less homely. But the alternative
that has nothing to do with it.
The alternative is either you have a public house or you have a badly maintained apartment building by an absentee landlord. And
there are no dwelling units in this country that are more badly maintained than public housing dwelling units.
In the South Bronx, people are burning their houses.
Of course, why?
They are burning their houses to move into public housing.
Of course, but why are they burning those houses and abandoning them? Why?
Badly maintained.
No, sirree. Because you have rent control in New York City, which makes it uneconomical to maintain the houses and means that the only way in which you can get any money out of them is by burning them down.
Also, an absentee landlord is very...
Absentee landlordism, of course. But you mean to say that the public housing units are not absentee landlords? Look, I am not... You must understand, I think it's important for people to have decent housing. My objection to public housing is that it's made the housing of the poor worse. You've torn down dwellings in which they lived. You've put up in part, if you take the whole housing program, urban renewal plus public housing, the situation is even worse. You've torn down more dwelling units than you've put up. Of those you put up, a considerable fraction have not been available to the poor. You've torn down low-income dwelling units. Take any urban renewal area in this country you want. You've torn down low-income dwelling units and you've put up luxury apartments. And that's helping the housing of the poor? Not by a long sight. So that the problem is, and then in the public housing units you've set up, because of the income requirements and so on, the people who can qualify for them tend to be broken families. They have an abnormally high rate of juvenile delinquency, of sabotage, of destruction. They are poorly maintained. You see, the problem that this young man is illustrating is a tendency that we often have to take the will for the deed. The problem isn't the objective of the public housing units. The point is to go out and see what's actually happened with them. And there is hardly anybody who has studied the subject who will defend the public housing program as having improved the housing of the poor.